A poor single mom takes her kids to a public park, but a millionaire CEO steps in and offers her a life-changing deal. Rain pounded against the rusted slide, silver droplets dancing on the metal surface. Samantha Evans clutched her threadbare jacket tightly around her shoulders, heart hammering with apprehension as she scanned the deserted park. At the far end of the playground, her two children, Lily and Noah, huddled under the creaking swings, their laughter muted by the stormy sky. Samantha had never felt more uncertain or more determined. Without warning, a dark luxury sedan glided up along the curb, headlights glaring through the sheets of rain. Samantha's throat constricted as the passenger door opened, and out stepped a tall figure in a sleek suit. His expression, initially unreadable, softened the instant he saw the small family shivering under the swings. Something about his gaze, intense yet oddly comforting, sent Samantha's pulse thrumming. She didn't know who he was or why he was here, but her instincts told her this encounter was about to change everything. She had no clue that in a matter of moments, she'd be faced with a proposition more astonishing than anything she'd dared to imagine, and that her children's laughter would become the key to unlocking a future she never thought possible. Like, share, comment, and subscribe for more heartfelt stories just like this. Samantha Evans had never wanted to be a single mother, but life had a way of shattering well-laid plans. Standing just 5 feet 3 inches tall, she was slender and perpetually tired, yet her hazel eyes, soft and bright, betrayed a fierce determination. Growing up in a quiet suburban neighborhood, she had once dreamed of running her own bakery or traveling the world, but those fantasies had taken a back seat the moment she discovered she was pregnant with Lily, and then 3 years later, with Noah. The father of her children had vanished one night, leaving only a scribbled note stating that he wasn't ready for the responsibilities that lay ahead. Samantha cried for days, but eventually she pulled herself together. She had 2 mouths to feed, and heartbreak would have to wait. Years went by. Samantha juggled part-time gigs at local diners and convenience stores, struggling to keep a roof over her family's heads. She lived in a tiny, 1-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of a bustling city. Some nights she'd lie awake staring at the water-stained ceiling, thinking about the life she wanted to create for Lily and Noah. Her children were her everything, the reason she woke up before dawn each morning and trudged through the day. Lily, now 7, had an inquisitive mind and a nurturing heart that belied her age, always looking out for her younger brother. Noah, at 4, had a laugh that could lighten the darkest day. To them, Samantha was both mother and father, caretaker and protector. Located in a lower-income neighborhood, the apartment building was old but functional. Faded wallpaper in the hallways and a flickering light in the lobby bore silent witness to the cycles of families who came and went in search of a better life. Samantha had neither time nor energy to dwell on the building's disrepair. She spent her free hours with Lily and Noah, reading to them, playing silly games, and ensuring they felt loved, no matter what. She had her struggles, of course. The mounting bills, the clock ticking on her rent, the insidious fear that one day she might just not make it. Yet every morning she plastered a brave smile on her face and carried on. Her solace was the local public park. It wasn't much, just a modest green space crammed between rows of towering office buildings and older residential blocks, but it was free and within walking distance. On Sunday afternoons, she would pack a small picnic, if her budget allowed, and head there with the kids. There, Lily could pretend to be an explorer, searching for hidden treasures under the giant oak tree, while Noah tumbled down the slides and chased squirrels along the grassy patches. On good days, the sun would shine, and families from all walks of life would convene, their children playing tag or hopscotch. On bad days, when storm clouds crowded the sky, Samantha would still show up if only to give the kids a breath of fresh air. The city surrounding this little park was a metropolis of contrasts. Towering skyscrapers cast shadows over dilapidated row houses. People in tailored suits strode briskly next to those living paycheck to paycheck. Luxury cars sped past battered city buses. Samantha, used to blending into the background, rarely attracted attention. She wasn't the type to cause a scene. She preferred to go unnoticed, to quietly endure her struggles. This particular Sunday, a crisp breeze replaced the usual oppressive humidity. Samantha decided to treat the children to an outing at the park, even though her finances teetered on the brink of desperation. She stuffed a few sandwiches into a plastic container, grabbed a water bottle, and herded Lily and Noah out the door. The kids skipped ahead excitedly, Lily's pigtails bouncing, Noah giggling each time he nearly lost his balance. Their joy filled Samantha's heart with a warmth she hadn't felt in a while. A day in the sunshine could briefly eclipse her worries. They arrived at the park, a swirl of golden leaves sweeping across the playground. Samantha inhaled the scent of freshly cut grass, feeling her tension momentarily dissolve. Lily begged to race to the swings, while Noah made a beeline for the slide. Samantha dutifully followed, setting up their humble picnic on a bench. She watched her kids chase each other around the weathered play structure, their laughter echoing across the empty space. A peacefulness settled over her, an ephemeral sense that maybe, just maybe, everything would be okay. Unbeknownst to her, someone else had also found solace in this unassuming park. He watched from the shadow of a large maple tree, phone in hand, an unreadable expression on his face. This was Adrian Lockhart, 32, a self-made millionaire, and the newly appointed CEO of Lockhart Industries, a formidable real estate conglomerate. He had come to the park on a whim, seeking a moment to breathe away from his high-pressure world of board meetings and endless negotiations. Tall and broad-shouldered with slate-gray eyes, Adrian exuded a quiet confidence that tended to silence a room the moment he walked in. Yet beneath that poised exterior lay a man burdened by responsibilities and haunted by regrets. He found himself drawn to the small family, just a mother and her 2 kids. At first, he wasn't sure why he couldn't tear his gaze away. The mother was unremarkable in a superficial sense, wearing jeans that had seen better days and a simple sweater. But there was something about her posture, protective, resolute, as she gathered her children to the bench and pulled out what seemed to be a modest lunch. When the boy squealed in delight at an extra cookie, the mother's face lit up with pure love. Adrian's chest tightened with an unfamiliar pang. He'd spent most of his life preoccupied with business deals, traveling across the globe, rarely noticing such quiet, everyday moments. For a moment, he allowed himself to drift into the memory of a childhood he scarcely remembered. His mother smiling at him after a tough soccer game, the comfort of her soothing words when his father was distant and cold. Adrian had buried those images under layers of ambition and necessity, but something about this scene unearthed them. He felt that his carefully maintained facade, his fortress of success, was being chipped away by simple, innocent laughter. That's when a gust of wind rustled through the branches overhead, scattering leaves across the grass. It brought Adrian back to the present with a start. He had a meeting to attend in less than an hour, and typically he wouldn't be caught dead being late. Yet, he remained rooted to the spot, compelled to watch. On the other side of the park, Samantha felt a sudden prickle at the back of her neck, as though someone were watching her. She glanced around, scanning the few people who dotted the area, a jogger, an elderly couple. Then her gaze slid to the tall man by the maple tree. Even from a distance, his posture radiated authority, and his clothes, immaculate tailored suit, stood out in stark contrast to the more casual attire around him. Samantha hesitated, torn between curiosity and a sense of protectiveness. But just as quickly as her eyes found him, he turned away, slipping a phone out of his pocket to check something on the screen. Samantha shook her head, reminding herself that her attention belonged solely to Lily and Noah. After all, she had her own worries to contend with. Her landlord had given her a final warning on the rent, and her boss at the diner had cut her shifts again. Thoughts raced through her mind as she watched Lily push Noah on the swing, giggles erupting into the wind. She tried to savor the moment, but reality hovered over her like an ever-present storm cloud. And yet, in a single afternoon, as the sun dipped below the horizon, her life was about to change in the most unimaginable way. It all started with a phone call that Samantha had been dreading. The kids were still playing, and she was momentarily lost in the swirl of her own thoughts when her phone buzzed. She checked the caller ID. Landlord. Her heart skipped a beat. "Hello," she answered, keeping a watchful eye on Lily and Noah. "Samantha, I've tried to be patient, but I can't keep you in that apartment if you don't pay rent by the end of the month. You're already behind." The tone was final, lacking any trace of pity. I understand," she stammered. "I'm trying to get the money together, I promise. I just need a little more time." "Time's up," the landlord replied gruffly. "End of the month or you're out. No exceptions." A lump formed in her throat. She glanced at her children and mustered her bravest voice. "I'll find a way," she said softly, then hung up, trembling as she slid the phone back into her pocket. At the same moment, Adrian was finishing a call of his own. "Yes, I'll be there," he said curtly into his phone, glancing at his watch. He noticed that nearly half an hour had passed, an unusual lapse in his meticulously scheduled life. But as he turned to leave, something made him look again at the small family. He saw the mother on the phone, her face etched with fear and worry. Even from this distance, he recognized desperation. On impulse, he began walking toward her, ignoring the rational voice in his head that told him this was none of his business. He was the CEO of a billion-dollar enterprise. Why should he concern himself with strangers in the park? Yet the memory of her children's laughter tugged at something deep within him. The distance between them closed, and soon he was standing a few feet away, overshadowing her modest bench. Samantha looked up, startled by the towering man in a suit. His hair was neatly styled, and a glimmer of concern softened his piercing gray eyes. "Good afternoon," he said smoothly. Samantha blinked, taken aback by the polished timbre of his voice. Lily and Noah paused in their play, curiosity piqued by the stranger's sudden presence. Hello?" she managed, her cheeks flushing. She instinctively moved to position herself in front of the children, as though shielding them from any potential threat. Adrian noticed her protective stance and raised his hand slightly in a gesture of peace. "I'm sorry to intrude. I just saw you here. I was passing by." His voice trailed off as though even he couldn't fully explain his actions. Then, with an awkward cough, he introduced himself. "I'm Adrian Lockhart." Samantha's heart rate spiked. She'd heard that name before, Lockhart Industries. They owned half the real estate in the city, according to rumor, and their new CEO was rumored to be a ruthless negotiator and a man who rarely showed a soft side. She had never expected to meet him face to face, let alone in this rundown park. Her words caught in her throat. "I'm Samantha," she finally said, tucking a loose strand of brown hair behind her ear. Her voice trembled. "These are my children, Lily and Noah." Adrian glanced at the little ones, offering a polite smile. Lily stood behind Samantha, eyeing him warily, while Noah clung to Samantha's leg with wide eyes. "It's nice to meet you," Adrian added, his formality clashing with the casual setting. He hesitated, then gestured to the bench. "Mind if I sit?" Samantha glanced at the nearly empty bench, confusion etched into her features. Sure," she said, scooting over to make room. He lowered himself onto the wooden slats, careful not to let his expensive suit brush against any stray bits of dirt or food crumbs. For a moment they sat there, an unlikely pair, a high-powered CEO and an underemployed single mother, both staring out at the children playing. Samantha felt a rush of discomfort. Her life was messy, and this man practically screamed wealth and refinement. She didn't know what to say, so she simply sat in awkward silence. Then Adrian spoke, his voice soft enough that only she could hear. "I'm sorry if I startled you. I couldn't help noticing you looked upset. Is there anything I can do?" Samantha's pride flared. She wasn't used to strangers, especially powerful, wealthy men, asking if she needed help. The question itself felt intrusive, a spotlight on her private struggles, yet she couldn't deny the faint flicker of hope that any form of assistance might keep a roof over her children's heads. "No," she said too quickly, then softened her tone. "I appreciate your concern, but I'm fine." He studied her, his gaze intense but not unkind. "Are you sure?" She gave a tight nod, forcing a smile. "Yes, thank you." Just then, Lily bounded over, curiosity overcoming her caution. "Are you Mommy's friend?" she asked, looking up at Adrian. He paused before replying, glancing at Samantha. "I hope so," he said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Samantha's cheeks burned. "Lily, this is Mr. Lockhart." She almost said sir, but caught herself. She was grateful the children didn't fully grasp her anxiety or the weight of this moment. Adrian nodded at Lily, who squinted at him. "Why are you wearing a suit in the park?" Her innocence made him chuckle. "I had a meeting," he said, "but I stopped here first." Lily looked up at her mother with bright eyes. "Mommy, can he play with us?" Samantha was about to politely decline, but to her shock, Adrian responded first. "I'm not sure I'm dressed for the slide, but how about I push you on the swing?" He glanced at Samantha for permission. She hesitated. Her mind screamed that this was absurd, a wealthy CEO in a pristine suit pushing her daughter on a swing. But Lily's hopeful expression melted her reservations. "Okay," she found herself saying. Lily took Adrian's hand, leading him to the swings with unbridled excitement. Noah followed, slightly less certain, but drawn by the novelty. For several minutes, Samantha watched in a daze as Adrian gave Lily gentle pushes on the swing, making sure not to overdo it, and he smiled, an expression that transformed his typically composed face into something almost boyish. Samantha couldn't deny the strangeness or the sweetness of the moment. The man who had likely never worried about rent in his life was here, playing with her children like an ordinary neighbor. Eventually, he checked his watch, the weight of his other obligations intruding. He turned back to Samantha. "I have to go soon," he said, voice reluctant. Then, as if reading some unspoken tension in her face, he added, "I'm serious about wanting to help." She didn't know what to say. Moments ago, she was on the verge of despair, and now, a man she'd never met was offering assistance without conditions. It felt like a trap or a fairy tale. She wasn't sure which. Adrian seemed to sense her hesitation. He pulled a business card from his inside pocket. "Call me if you change your mind," he said, his tone almost gentle. Then, with a respectful nod, he walked away, heading across the park toward a gleaming black sedan that pulled up right on cue. Samantha stared at the card for a long moment. Embossed on it was his name and direct phone number. She felt a swirl of conflicting emotions: relief, fear, wariness, hope. The memory of the landlord's ultimatum rang in her ears. But she couldn't imagine accepting charity from a stranger, let alone one whose life was so far removed from hers. She slipped the card into her pocket as Lily ran up, breathless from playing. "That was fun, Mommy," the child exclaimed. Noah, too, seemed more at ease. Samantha forced a smile. "Yes, sweetheart, it was." But behind her gentle reply, her mind churned, wondering if this bizarre encounter would lead to a fresh start, or a heartbreak she couldn't afford. The following week was a blur of stress and half-fulfilled promises. Samantha picked up extra shifts at the diner, only to find them canceled by yet another cost-cutting measure. She scrambled to cobble together babysitters for Lily and Noah whenever she could find part-time cleaning gigs in the upscale neighborhoods across town. Each evening, she came home too exhausted to do more than smile weakly at her children as she tucked them into bed. The landlord's words hung over her. She had mere days to come up with the overdue rent, or they'd be evicted. She considered her options: a payday loan, borrowing from friends, none of which were truly feasible. Every phone call ended in a polite but firm refusal. Her friends were as cash-strapped as she was, and payday loans would bury her deeper in debt. Exhaustion and worry pressed into her like a heavy weight. Yet, in the back of her mind, she couldn't stop thinking about Adrian Lockhart's business card. Occasionally, she would take it out of her purse to stare at the embossed lettering. Could he really help her? And what would he want in return? Samantha wasn't naive. She knew that in a city fueled by power and money, deals rarely came without strings attached. Still, Lily and Noah were her priority. She could handle her own heartbreak and disappointment, but the thought of her children losing their home, no matter how modest, broke her. One night, after putting the kids to bed, she found herself at the small kitchen table, the business card resting between her fingers. Tired tears blurred her vision. She reached for her phone, inputting the number, her heart pounding as she hovered over the call button. Seconds passed, and she realized her hand was shaking. Finally, she pressed call. The phone rang twice. "Lockhart," came the curt greeting on the other end. In the background, Samantha could hear muted noises, voices, maybe the hum of traffic. She inhaled sharply. Hello, Mr. Lockhart. This is Samantha Evans. We met at the park." There was a brief silence before his voice turned soft. "Samantha, I'm glad you called. How are you?" The genuine concern in his tone caught her off guard. She tightened her grip on the phone. I'm okay," she lied, then added in a near whisper, "I'm sorry to bother you, but I wasn't sure who else to call." "You're not bothering me," he said, the background noise fading as though he'd stepped into a quieter space. "Is everything all right?" The dam of her composure cracked and her words came pouring out. The looming eviction, her cut hours at work, her fear for her children's well-being. She didn't intend to reveal so much, but once she started, she couldn't stop. When she finished, she felt simultaneously mortified and unburdened. Adrian's reply was measured, calm. "Samantha, I can help with this. Will you let me?" She closed her eyes, relief and apprehension colliding. "What does that mean exactly?" she whispered. "Let's meet," he suggested. "Tomorrow, if possible. I'll arrange something. Maybe lunch near your place. We can talk in person." Her fingers trembled. She thought of Lily and Noah asleep in the other room. "All right," she said quietly. "Tomorrow." They exchanged details and she hung up, her heart beating so loudly she was sure it would wake the kids. She stared at the phone, half terrified, half hopeful. For the first time in ages, there was a lifeline. She just wasn't sure if it was safe to grasp. The next afternoon, Samantha found herself stepping into a lavish restaurant nestled on the ground floor of a gleaming skyscraper. She felt wildly out of place in her thrift store blouse and slacks. The marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and hushed elegance intimidated her, but she squared her shoulders, remembering why she'd come. A hostess guided her to a private booth near the back, partially concealed by luxurious drapes. Adrian was already there, clad in a tailored charcoal suit and checking his phone. When he saw her, he rose to greet her with a polite nod. "Thank you for coming," he said, pulling out a chair for her. She slid into it, hands folded in her lap to hide her nervous fidgeting. The environment was a far cry from the diner where she usually ate. She glanced at the menu, her eyes widening at the prices. Adrian noticed her discomfort and closed his own menu. "You can order anything you'd like," he said, trying to be reassuring. Samantha swallowed, deciding on a simple sandwich. Once the waiter had taken their orders, Adrian turned his full attention to her. "So, about your situation," she cut him off gently. "Look, I appreciate your willingness to help, but I need to know why. You hardly know me." He leaned forward, elbows resting on the table. "I don't usually do this," he began, his voice quiet. "But I saw you with your kids and I recognized something. Maybe it was the way you looked at them, or how determined you seemed. I've spent years focusing on business, pushing aside any personal connections, and seeing you and your children. Well, it reminded me of what I've been missing." Samantha studied him, uncertainty mingling with a glimmer of sympathy. "And how exactly do you plan to help?" He took a measured breath. "I run a real estate conglomerate. I have properties all over this city. Some are upscale condos, others are more modest. Let me move you and your kids into a better place, rent-free for now. I can also connect you with job opportunities through some of my affiliated companies. You'd have a stable income and you wouldn't have to worry about eviction." Her eyes widened. It was an offer she could hardly comprehend. "That's extremely generous." Instinctively, she braced for the catch. "But what do you want in return?" His gaze flickered with something akin to vulnerability. "We'll call it a business arrangement. I'm in the process of launching a new philanthropic initiative under Lockhart Industries. We want to support single parents who are struggling, but I need a face for the project, so to speak. We can help each other." Her mind spun. She'd be a poster child for his corporate responsibility campaign. Seeing her hesitation, Adrian continued, "I won't force you to do anything you're not comfortable with, but you'd be part of public events, maybe a few media appearances, to show how the program helps real families. It would help me gain city council support, expedite some real estate deals that have a public service angle." He sighed. "I know it sounds cold, tying your life to corporate interests, but believe me when I say the help I'm offering is genuine." Samantha considered his words. This was no small favor. He was essentially offering a lifeline out of poverty in exchange for her cooperation in a corporate PR strategy. The moral complexities made her uneasy. Yet the thought of Lily and Noah having a stable home overshadowed her misgivings. She couldn't turn down a chance to secure their future. "Okay," she said quietly. I'll do it." Relief flashed across Adrian's features. "Thank you. We'll get the legal paperwork sorted. I'll have my assistant arrange a meeting with our PR team, but first, I'll handle your immediate concerns, rent, bills, everything." Tears pricked the corners of her eyes. She felt a flood of gratitude tempered by a persistent undercurrent of doubt. "All right," she whispered. Over the next few weeks, Samantha's life changed at an astonishing pace. Adrian assigned a property manager to her case, and within days she and her children moved into a clean, modest two-bedroom apartment owned by Lockhart Industries. It was still within the same city, but the neighborhood was safer, the building newer, and the neighbors friendly. Lily gasped at the freshly painted walls and the small balcony overlooking a community garden. Noah bounced on his new bed, gleeful as ever. Samantha stood in the living room, taking in the sunlight streaming through the window. For once, she wasn't worried about how she'd pay the rent next month. A sense of safety enveloped her, bringing tears to her eyes. Meanwhile, Adrian provided her with a contact in one of his affiliate companies, a customer service position that paid better than her previous jobs. Though initially nervous, Samantha found she had a knack for patiently dealing with customers. Her supervisor praised her dedication, and soon she felt a budding sense of pride, finally able to envision a steady, reliable income. Adrian's involvement, however, loomed large. Their arrangement included monthly check-ins, plus the occasional public appearance where Samantha was introduced as a beneficiary of Lockhart Industries' new community outreach program. Photographers snapped pictures, and reporters asked questions. At first, Samantha was shy and unsure, stumbling over her words. Adrian, poised and accustomed to the spotlight, would gently guide her through each event. Sometimes he'd stand protectively by her side, offering subtle nods of encouragement. Over time, she began to grow into the role, her confidence bolstered by the knowledge that she was providing her children a better life. But with each encounter, something else began to stir, something neither she nor Adrian had foreseen. Beneath the polished exteriors and business agreements, there was a flicker of emotional connection they both tried to ignore. Samantha caught herself thinking about Adrian outside of the official events, remembering the way his posture softened when he spoke to Lily and Noah, or the warmth in his eyes when he offered her a kind word. Adrian, for his part, found his thoughts drifting to her more frequently. How she tucked her hair behind her ear when nervous, the resolve in her gaze when discussing her children's futures, the quiet grace she carried despite her struggles. In the corridors of Lockhart Industries, rumors began circulating. Why was the boss spending so much personal time on a single mother's case? More than once, Adrian's personal assistant, Felicia, flashed him knowing looks. And in Samantha's office, some co-workers speculated that she must be sleeping with the boss to land such perks, comments she tried to ignore, though they stung. She reminded herself that she was working diligently and ethically, that Adrian's generosity was part of a larger corporate outreach. Yet the whispers tested her fragile sense of self-worth. Still, the seeds of mutual affection were taking root, watered by empathy and closeness. Neither Adrian nor Samantha wanted to admit it, not with so many complications. And so they maintained a professional veneer, even as tension simmered beneath the surface. It happened at a gala event, a fundraiser for the philanthropic wing of Lockhart Industries. The setting was lavish, glittering chandeliers, a champagne fountain, and elegantly dressed guests. Samantha, wearing a simple yet tasteful evening gown provided by the company, felt both nervous and excited. This was her first formal event, and Lily and Noah had been left with a babysitter for the evening. Adrian had insisted Samantha attend, wanting to showcase her success story to potential donors and city officials. The event began smoothly. Samantha posed for photos, plastering on a smile she hoped appeared natural. Adrian introduced her to high-profile individuals, a city council member, potential investors, even a prominent philanthropist. Each offered polite nods or compliments, commending her bravery in rising from hardship. Samantha thanked them, her voice trembling but sincere. Amid the clink of wine glasses and hum of background music, Samantha found her eyes frequently drawn to Adrian. He was the epitome of poise, effortlessly navigating conversations, his presence commanding yet approachable. She noticed how his gaze often flickered in her direction, making sure she was comfortable. Each time their eyes met, her heart gave a traitorous flutter. As the evening wore on, Adrian took the stage, delivering a polished speech about his company's commitment to social welfare. He spoke of investing in people, not just properties, and to Samantha's surprise, he even mentioned her story without naming her directly, an example of perseverance and the company's shared success in providing opportunities. Warm applause followed. At the tail end of his speech, however, the unexpected happened. A man in a sharp suit stood up from the audience, clearing his throat loudly. Samantha recognized him instantly. Derek Hale, a rival developer who had a reputation for underhanded tactics. The tension in Adrian's posture was immediate. "Impressive speech, Lockhart," Derek drawled. "Though I wonder if you'd like to explain the real reason you're parading a single mother around as a marketing tactic, or perhaps you'd prefer to dodge the truth." A hush fell over the ballroom. Adrian's eyes narrowed, his voice carefully restrained. "If you have an accusation, Derek, by all means share it." Derek smirked. "Rumor has it that you're leveraging your philanthropic program for personal gain, not just corporate benefit. Some say you've taken a more personal interest in this particular beneficiary. Perhaps that's why city permits for your new high-rise project are moving forward so smoothly." His gaze shifted pointedly towards Samantha, a sneer curling his lips. Samantha felt a cold jolt of dread. She could see the suspicion flicker through the crowd. Anxiety rose in her chest. Adrian's face hardened, but he managed a level tone. "That's a serious accusation, Derek," he said, "and entirely without basis." "Oh, is it?" Derek retorted, stepping forward. "My sources indicate that the program beneficiary was months behind on rent, nearly evicted, and then mysteriously ended up in a Lockhart-owned apartment without paying a dime. Let's not forget the cushy job and appearances at your events. If that's not favoritism, that's enough." Adrian's voice cracked like a whip, his composure threatening to unravel. The crowd murmured, shifting uncomfortably. All eyes turned to Samantha, who stood rooted in mortification. "I have nothing to hide about my philanthropic efforts," Adrian asserted. "This event is about supporting people in need, but you, Derek, have always found a way to twist altruism into something ugly." Derek shrugged theatrically. "Just making sure everyone knows the facts. If the city decides to investigate whether Lockhart is using charitable initiatives to influence zoning and licensing, they'll be quite interested in Miss Evans's arrangement, wouldn't you say?" At that, Samantha felt the bottom fall out of her world. She wasn't naive. She'd known there could be rumors. But to have everything laid bare in front of so many influential individuals, to be painted as a pawn, or worse, a mistress. She fled the ballroom, her head spinning with shame and confusion. She barely registered Adrian calling after her. Tears stung Samantha's eyes as she reached the lobby, ignoring the concerned stares of gala attendees. She'd never felt so exposed. The arrangement had always been a calculated exchange, her participation in PR for a safe home and stable job, but hearing it flung as an accusation in front of dozens of wealthy spectators made her feel cheap. Suddenly, a gentle hand grasped her elbow. She turned to find Adrian, his eyes filled with concern and fury. "Don't listen to Derek," he said, voice shaking. "He's just trying to sabotage me." Samantha's voice trembled. "But he's right, isn't he? I'm indebted to you. People will assume I've done worse." She choked on the implication. Adrian's jaw clenched. "That's not what this is. You know it isn't." She blinked back tears. "But how do you explain it to them? That you're just a good man trying to help out of kindness? They won't believe that." His eyes flickered with something like pain. "Samantha, I don't care what they believe. I only care about you and your children being safe." Her breath caught. Emotions she'd tried to keep buried surged. "Why?" she whispered. "Why does that matter to you so much?" Adrian looked at her, the room seemingly frozen around them. "Because I care about you, more than I should. And not just because of the program or the kids. Because you've reminded me there's more to life than business deals and profits. He paused, swallowing his vulnerability. "I've come to care about you in a way that might be seen as more than professional. A wave of conflicting emotions swamped her: gratitude, longing, fear, and a deep sense of unworthiness. She glanced away. "I don't know how to handle this. And if the city or the press start digging, they might smear you or your entire company. I can't be responsible for that." Adrian exhaled sharply. "Let them dig. My conscience is clear. I refuse to abandon you just to placate Derek or any rumor-mongers." Samantha covered her face with her hands, tears slipping through her fingers. I need time," she whispered. "I can't think straight right now." Adrian gently pulled her hands away, his gaze full of regret and tenderness. "I understand. Take the time you need. But don't make any rash decisions, please." She nodded, turning away as her tears continued to flow. She hurried out of the venue, unsure where to go, but certain she needed distance from the swirling chaos. Adrian remained behind, feeling helpless as he watched her disappear into the night. Over the next days, Samantha tried to maintain some sense of normalcy. She went to work, took care of Lily and Noah, and avoided the news or any discussion of the gala. The rumor mill, however, was ruthless. In her office, colleagues cast sidelong glances, some whispering that she was the CEO's pet project or worse. Online tabloids picked up the story, fueling speculation about an illicit affair. Samantha's phone buzzed with calls from unknown numbers, presumably reporters seeking a juicy quote. The stress overwhelmed her. Each ring of the phone, each email notification felt like an ambush. She tried to shield Lily and Noah from the tension, but even they sensed her anxiety. More than once, Lily asked if Mommy was okay, to which Samantha would plaster on a smile and assure her daughter everything was fine. Adrian, meanwhile, tried to reach out. He called, texted, even dropped by her apartment once, only to find she wouldn't open the door. Samantha wasn't angry with him. She simply didn't know how to face him. She needed clarity, and each encounter threatened to dissolve her resolve. Her confusion about her feelings for him only worsened the situation. Part of her yearned for the stability and gentleness he offered, while another part feared the complications and the power imbalance in their relationship. She worried about becoming dependent on him, losing her autonomy. She worried about being viewed as nothing more than a charity case or a convenient face for a corporate narrative. Finally, an external force pushed her to take action. She received a notice from her manager. The city was launching a formal inquiry into Lockhart Industries' philanthropic program to determine whether it breached any ethics or bribery statutes regarding real estate permits. That meant Samantha would likely be called to testify or provide statements about her arrangement with Adrian. Her heart sank. She couldn't allow her relationship, or her mere association, with Adrian to become the downfall of everything he'd built. Nor could she stand by idly if it threatened the fragile stability she'd found for her children. Something had to be done. Late one evening, after putting Lily and Noah to bed, Samantha mustered the courage to call Adrian. The phone barely rang once before he answered. "Samantha?" he said, voice urgent, as though he'd been waiting for her call. "Are you okay?" She swallowed the lump in her throat. I'm all right, but I need to talk to you. Can you come over?" Half an hour later, Adrian stood at her doorstep, his expression filled with apprehension and relief. She led him into the small living room, motioning for him to sit on the couch. She lingered near the window, arms folded, trying to find the words. He spoke first. "I've been worried. I know everything must be overwhelming." She took a breath, steadying herself. "There's a city inquiry. They'll want details about how I got this apartment, the job, everything." She turned to face him, seeing the weariness etched into his usually confident features. "I know," he admitted. "We have lawyers preparing documents, and I'm willing to fight it. Our arrangement was entirely legal." "But it looks bad," she interjected, her voice wavering. "It looks like you gave me special favors to win city approval for your new developments. And people are saying things about us." She paused, the words caught in her throat. Adrian's eyes flickered with guilt, anger, and concern. "Let them talk. The facts are clear. You qualified for the philanthropic program, and yes, I took a personal interest. But that's not illegal." Samantha shook her head, tears threatening. "I can't bear being the reason your name, your company, gets dragged through the mud. And I don't want Lily and Noah to be in the spotlight of some scandal. They've already had too many hardships. He crossed the space between them, gently placing a hand on her arm. You're not to blame for this. Derek is twisting things to his advantage. Tears spilled down her cheeks. But he's leveraging our arrangement, using it as a weapon against you, against all the good you're trying to do. And for me, it's become so complicated. My feelings... She stopped, biting her lip. His voice softened. Talk to me, Samantha, please. She closed her eyes, letting the words tumble out. I care about you too, but I don't know how to handle it. Every time I'm with you, I feel safe, and I've never had that before. But this power imbalance, your wealth, your status, it scares me. I don't want to just be a project or someone who constantly needs rescuing. Adrian drew her into a gentle embrace. You're not a project, he whispered. You're an incredible woman who deserves the world. And if you let me, I want to be by your side, not as a savior, but as a partner. She clung to him, sobs shaking her small frame. For a moment, she let herself imagine a future with him, a family, a stable home, love. But then reality intruded. The inquiry, the rumors, the potential fallout. She pulled away, wiping her tears. I might need to step away from the program, she said quietly, at least publicly, to show that I'm not just your, It might help quell the rumors. Adrian nodded, though pain shadowed his eyes. If that's what you need, I'll support it. I'll figure out how to handle the inquiry. We can keep you and the kids out of the spotlight. Her heart twisted. Part of her wanted to run into his arms, but the rational part recognized the necessity of distance. Thank you, she managed, for everything. He took her hand, raising it to his lips. The gesture was tender, filled with a quiet longing. They stood like that for a moment, bathed in the soft glow of a single lamp, as though trying to memorize the warmth of the other. Then, with a final gentle squeeze of her hand, Adrian whispered, "Good night," and slipped out the door, leaving Samantha alone with her swirling emotions. The city's inquiry proceeded over the following weeks, an intense media spotlight shining on Lockhart Industries and especially on Adrian. Samantha, true to her word, stepped back from any public events associated with the philanthropic program. She remained in her job and continued to live in the Lockhart-owned apartment, but kept a low profile. Lawyers worked around the clock to compile documents proving that the philanthropic initiative was not a bribe or manipulation, but a genuine support program for single parents in need. Derek Hale, meanwhile, ramped up his accusations, feeding sensational quotes to the press and pushing for the city council to revoke Adrian's building permits. Tensions reached a fever pitch, with both sides lawyering up for a showdown at a formal hearing. When the day of the hearing arrived, Adrian, flanked by his legal team, took the stand to address the city council's concerns. Samantha watched from a distance, feeling a mixture of anxiety and protectiveness. She prayed the truth would come out. In a dramatic twist, an internal Lockhart Industries audit presented evidence that not only had the philanthropic program followed all required regulations, but Derek himself had been involved in bribing a city inspector to delay Adrian's permits, an attempt to sabotage the Lockhart project. The revelation shocked the council members, turning the scrutiny away from Adrian and onto Derek's unethical practices. By the hearing's end, Adrian was cleared of any wrongdoing. Derek, exposed for his corruption, stormed out of the room, muttering about appealing the decision. Media outlets scrambled to update their stories, and a wave of relief swept through Lockhart Industries. Samantha felt a surge of gratitude and vindication for the man who had extended her a helping hand. Later that afternoon, after the hearing, Samantha waited anxiously outside the city courthouse. Adrian emerged to a swarm of reporters shouting questions. His attorneys held them at bay, but it was Adrian's gaze that searched the crowd until he found her standing near a column, hands clasped tightly. Samantha stepped forward, offering him a shaky smile. The cameras were still rolling, but she didn't care. Their eyes locked, and in that moment the weight of the past weeks melted. She fought back tears of relief and happiness. Adrian approached, ignoring the reporters. "It's over," he said, voice thick with emotion. "We're in the clear." She smiled up at him, tears threatening to spill. "I knew you'd be vindicated. She paused, swallowing her words. He took her hands, speaking softly. I know we said we'd keep a distance, but I can't do this anymore. I don't want a public arrangement or a hush-hush affair. I want to be with you, fully, openly, if you'll have me. She felt her heart swell, aware of the cameras, but even more aware of the sincerity in his voice. Adrian, Tears brimmed in her eyes as she thought about Lily and Noah, about the life she'd built thanks to his help, about the genuine feelings that had blossomed between them. I want that too. Without another thought, Adrian pulled her into a warm embrace. The press erupted in flashes of light, capturing the moment of their shared relief and affection. Samantha buried her face against his chest, letting the tension seep away. In the weeks that followed, Samantha took a more measured approach to her life. While still grateful for Adrian's help, she insisted on paying a reduced, affordable rent for her apartment, wanting to assert her independence. Adrian respected her decision, and they worked out a fair agreement. Slowly, she saved money, setting aside a small emergency fund. Her job in the affiliate company continued to go well, and she discovered a new passion for marketing, leading to a potential promotion. Adrian, in turn, made changes within Lockhart Industries to ensure that philanthropy remained a genuine endeavor rather than a potential PR weapon. He expanded the single-parent assistance program, naming it after his late mother. Samantha became an informal consultant, providing insights on what families truly needed to thrive. Several other families joined the program, each with their own stories of struggle and hope. As for Lily and Noah, they adapted beautifully to their new environment. Lily found a best friend in the community's after-school program, while Noah reveled in the open courtyard to run around. Adrian became a frequent presence in their lives, taking them to museums, showing up for Lily's school events, and even helping with bedtime stories when Samantha allowed it. The children grew to adore him, calling him Uncle Adrian at first, then dropping the uncle as they sensed a deeper bond forming between him and their mother. On a warm spring afternoon, all four of them found themselves back at the park where it all began. Lily and Noah ran ahead, giggling as they raced to the swings. Samantha and Adrian strolled hand in hand across the grass, their steps unhurried, hearts full. He glanced down at her, smiling. Do you remember the first day we met here? She nodded, recalling how strange and surreal it had felt. I never would have believed that meeting you would change my entire life. Adrian squeezed her hand. Fate has a funny way of bringing people together. They reached the swings, where Lily and Noah begged Adrian to push them. Samantha laughed, stepping aside to let him play the role he was growing into so naturally. He gave the children gentle pushes, their laughter echoing across the sunlit playground. Samantha watched, her chest tight with gratitude and love. She remembered the fear and uncertainty that once held her captive, the nights spent worrying about rent and food. Standing here now, with Adrian smiling at her, she felt an overwhelming sense of home and possibility. When Lily demanded a higher push, Adrian obliged, laughing as her braids flew behind her. Noah squealed with delight. Samantha took a seat on the bench, smiling at the scene before her. The swirl of memories, heartaches, and triumphs merged into one quiet, beautiful moment. Adrian glanced back at her, and in his eyes she saw a promise, a future built on mutual respect, care, and genuine love. Samantha felt a gentle breeze brush against her cheek, and she silently thanked whatever twist of fate led this poised millionaire CEO to a rundown park on a day that changed not just her life, but the lives of her children as well. In that sunlight, with the laughter of children rising like music, Samantha Evans knew she was no longer alone, no longer trapped. And as Adrian came to sit beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders, she leaned her head against his, content in the knowledge that they were forging a new path, together. Life's twists and turns often lead us to places we never expected. For Samantha, a struggling single mother just trying to create a stable life for her children, everything seemed bleak, until a chance meeting with Adrian Lockhart, a man whose own journey had left him longing for deeper meaning. Their unlikely connection blossomed into a bond that not only uplifted Samantha and her children, but also transformed Adrian's understanding of success and compassion. In the end, their story is a testament to the power of hope, courage, and the willingness to see beyond social barriers. A single act of kindness can set off a chain reaction, weaving together lives that might have otherwise stayed separate. And when mutual respect and genuine affection take root, even the most daunting obstacles, whether financial hardship or public scrutiny, can be overcome. Thank you so much for reading this heartfelt journey. If you enjoyed this romantic drama about resilience, second chances, and the healing power of love, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more stories. Until next time, remember that hope can grow in the most unexpected places, and love can truly conquer all.